A very good evening. A warm welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Norman Goodfellows, and welcome to a little corner of the rural Free State. I have escaped the hustle and bustle and potholes and broken traffic lights and load shedding of Johannesburg for a week or so, and before I head back tomorrow, I will be wrapping up what has been a delightful week, mostly in the company of my wife's Greek family. The only downside is that my mother-in-law is both one of the finest chefs on the planet and one of the most enthusiastic Mediterranean mothers at their finest. And so even now, she's waving at me from the other side of the screen with a large bowl of something that she would very much like to feed me. I will fend her off because I have got other distractions on the show this evening, namely a wine that is sold out before it has even been released, or almost. There's a catch to that, and a happy one if you're watching this particular show. It's a collaboration between a couple of world-class sommeliers, a rather shrewd and savvy entrepreneur, and one of my favorite winemakers who is back on the show very happily once again to add his own particular touch of magic to this Monday's broadcast. So a show that travels to, let me work this out, to Cape Town, to Stellenbosch, to London and Hong Kong via Virginia in the Free State, as we look at an incredibly unique Chenin Blanc that is going to set the trend, I think, for a rather special collection of wines that will continue to grow over the next few years and beyond. So that is this evening's show. Who are our mystery sommeliers? Who is this cunning entrepreneur? And who is the smiling winemaker who you'll know well? Well, we'll find out in just a moment. Before we introduce them and the wine they've produced together, let's have a quick look at the latest wine news. Oh, this is coming up next Wednesday. I generally get quite excited about going to wine dinners, but this one has me positively dancing in anticipation. This is Erica Obermeyer. Snapshot, if you don't know the story, formerly worked at Graham Beck. When they decided goodbye still wine, we're going to stick to bubbles. She had the option of staying on. Instead, she decided to go off on her own. Fast forward a few years, the Platter New Winery of the Year, several five-star Platter wines, and a couple of years after that with her Erica O, the Syrah-led red blend that includes some Grenache and some Cinsault. That made her the Red Blend of the Year. That was her 2018 vintage. She's going to be up in Johannesburg and at the Old Oak at Royal Johannesburg. I'll be hosting this particular evening with her. Wines of elegance and of style and of absolute precision. She is an incredibly gifted winemaker, and also, I think more importantly, just an absolutely lovely person. It is a 6-course wine pairing. Chef Ransley Peterson will be working his culinary brand of sorcery and putting together a 6-course meal to pair with Erica's food. As it stands, it is not sold out, but I wouldn't wait too much longer. I think it's only 40 seats in total, but a very special night, and I look forward to seeing you there. And as well as tasting the wine, I'll also be in conversation with Erica about her wonderful wine story and where she finds herself today. So next Wednesday, you can get hold of the team at the Old Oak. And this is something I drank a little earlier in the month, and I just thought I'd throw it out there because it's a really cool example of some quite clever wine marketing. This is their Jericaris family wines, wines of origin Swartland, but wines made in Johannesburg. This is an Australian winemaker, and she has got wine made from grapes that she trucks up in cold trucks from Ardie Badenhorst and then makes the wine in Craighall Park, of all places. But what I really love about it, aside from the wine, which is really nice, the Thomas named after one of the children, this is the 2017 Syrah that's hitting a really nice drinking window at the moment. As you will have seen by now, I'm sure, that barcode on the right showcasing the Johannesburg skyline. And just a reminder that although the grapes are from the Swartland, the wine itself is made in Craighall Park in the heart of Johannesburg. Only wine, to the best of my knowledge, that is made in Johannesburg. I'll wait for someone to prove me wrong there. The wine itself is lovely, but there's also a terrific story and just a fun little piece of wine marketing to set yourself apart from a very, very busy wine market. This is the Grill House, and this is still going strong. This started at the beginning of the month. It is the Grill House Dan Really Likes Wine partnership with Norman Goodfellows, where each month there are 3 wines that I have selected, and you are able to not only try them, they're not on the usual wine list, but if you really like them, there's a QR code, and bang, that wine will be delivered to your door a few days later. The 3 wines we have on the Grill House wine list for this month. One of them is the aforementioned Erica O 2018 Platter Red Blend of the Year. It is glorious. We've also got some of the 2021 Newton Johnson Family Vineyards Pinot Noir. As with most Pinot Noir of a certain quality, it's wine that can definitely age a lot longer, but it's already in a really fun space to drink. And they do make some exceptional Pinot Noir in the Hamel-Larnada, especially the family Newton Johnson. And then the other one, if you want to go back a bit, and this is if you're having a really big, violent slab of red meat, then try out the 2010 Anthony Rupert Cabernet Franc. 13 years old. It still tastes remarkably young, but it's got a lovely balance to the wine and was one of the early Cabernet Francs to burst free from the shadows of a Bordeaux blend and present itself as a single variety. So those are the 3. And if you like them while you're dining at either of the 3 grill houses in Johannesburg, you can order them, have them delivered from the Dan Really Likes Wine digital pop-up store, which links to today's wine, but I'll tell you more about that just a little later. And then Boschendal. Now, this is our competition for this month. It is your chance to win a trip down to Boschendal. It is flights. It is 2 nights accommodation. It is lunch or dinner at both the Werf restaurant and the deli. It's a picnic, provided the weather is up to it. It's a trip to the Friday night market if a Friday night in summer is one of the nights you happen to be there. It's a chance to go horse riding, and you will also get to taste the full range of Boschendal wine. It's not the full range you need to buy, though. If you are at Norman Goodfellows, either in person or online, or on the Dan Really Likes Wine digital store, your chance to win this competition will require you to buy either a bottle of the Nicholl, that is the Bordeaux style blend with about 33% Shiraz launched in as well for what's proving a very popular wine, or any of the acclaimed range of Boschendal bubbles. So by any of those, you're into the draw, and voila, you could be on a flight and headed down to the Cape for 2 glorious nights for 2 people with accommodation at Boschendal. So get buying and get entering. All right, we'll give you some more detail on that a little later on in the show. Right now, though, let's say hello to our 4 guests. Now, 2 of them have been on the show before. One of them I bump into from time to time at school. And the 4th, well, he's a bit of a rock star of the sommelier world, so I'm slightly nervous and starstruck to be having him on the show. Let's welcome them on. Returning to the show is Gareth Ferreira, master sommelier, one of the very few doing South Africa proud, running Clare Smyth's operation in London. Joining him, his very good mate and entrepreneur supreme, Clayton Foster. Then on the line from somewhere in Hong Kong, late in the evening, he's probably in a jacuzzi with cigars by this stage of the evening. We welcome in Ronan Sayburn, who joins us, who heads up the Court of Master Sommeliers. And then returning to the show once again, very happily, is the peerless Ian Naudé, one of the godfathers of Stellenbosch wine. Guys, a warm welcome and lovely to have you all on Dan Really Likes Wine.
Hey, thanks for having us. I did.
Well, let's set the scene with Gareth as you make a return to the show. I think last time we spoke to you, you just got your master sommelier, and I think you were doing the show while signing autographs and getting selfies, just being terribly cool, and rightfully so. You've moved on to a brand new project since then. Tell me a little bit about Collectible and how this idea came about.
Well, to be honest, it was after a few too many bottles of wine, which I jumped on a phone call with Clayton I'd say about 15 months ago. And, we always had this idea, Clayton being a good friend of mine and of my brothers as well. They went to school together, and Clayton being probably one of my few friends that actually enjoy wine and interested about it and understand it. So we jumped on a phone call and said, should we try and bottle of wine together? Should we do something? And the idea kind of was, it was just an idea at the time. But I said to him, look, he had met Ian before. I'd put him in contact. I think Clayton had gone and tasted some wines with Ian and ended up over a long lunch, forming a bit of a friendship as well. But yeah, so we decided that the only way that we could do this from different parts of the world was to collaborate with people that we enjoy drinking their wines, people that we enjoy spending time with, and we jumped on a call with Ian, and the rest is pretty much history.
You've already got a fairly established status as a sommelier, no longer just in Johannesburg, but now in London as well. Surely you've got more than enough to do with wine at the moment. You want to make a beer or a craft gin or do something different? Or was this always a little nagging itch to scratch that you wanted to have a wine you could put your own name on?
Well, I think, for a lot of my life, the Master Sommelier exam, which I was studying for so many years, it just took up pretty much all of my extra time. So, if I wasn't at work, I was studying or tasting or training. And, to finally kind of get over that hurdle, and I found myself with a little bit more time on my hands. And, the idea of bottling a wine, I'm not a winemaker, so, I can't say that we've made the wine, though, those credits go out to all the winemakers who made the wine. We just put it together. But so I had a bit more time on my hands, and the ideas started coming up, and happy we could actually just start getting it done.
What about the choice of wine? Being the sommelier that you are, the connections that you have. I think last time I went past Core by Clare Smyth with its 3 Michelin stars, there were armies of people from places like Romani Conti and Petrus begging you to just taste some of their wine. So you could do pretty much anything you wanted, really. But you've gone home, you've gone back to South Africa, not just to South Africa, but to the grape that speaks so much about where we are as a wine producing nation. How cool was it for you to be able to dip into your heritage and have this first crack at producing your own wine with something that comes from back home?
Well, yeah, I think Chenin Blanc obviously is the grape which consistently produces some of the best South African wines. So when I jumped on a call with Ian, Clayton and myself, to ask him, is this project, is it possible? Can we actually do it? And second of all, I love Ian's Chenin Blanc, his old vine Chenin Blanc, which I've, drank and tasted for many years and loved the wine. Chenin Blanc was the first grape that we thought of, that we wanted to do, as a heritage grape, and a grape that we feel South Africa, put South Africa on the map globally. In London, South African wines have been growing over the last 5-10 years. I've seen it firsthand in the restaurant, how popular they've become. And Chenin Blanc is definitely at the top of that.
Now, you're not just doing this on your own. You've got a few people working with you. Introduce us to Clayton Foster before we bring Clayton in. What was the magic touch, other than being a great mate of yours and liking a bit of wine? But what did you feel Clayton could do to turn this into something really successful?
Well, the idea was that we wanted to have fun. I think wine is something that should be enjoyed. So I wanted to work together with people who enjoy it, but also, obviously, Clayton is a entrepreneur. He, business wise, he's very savvy. So it's probably something that I'm not very strong at. My strengths lie in the wine and the tasting. But Clayton I've known for many years, and like I said, he started getting into wine and asking me questions, and we'd share wines that we're drinking, talk about it. And I've known Clayton now probably too long, to be fair, 20 years, 25 years, and someone who I trust, business wise, but as well as wine. He's learned a few things over the time, and I know he enjoys drinking.
Well, let's jump over to Clayton. Welcome to the show. Congratulations on the new project, and one that's clearly done well, given that the wine is just about sold out. We'll touch on that in a moment. Go back to the first time this conversation came about with Gareth. Is his recollection pretty much the same as yours? And what were your thoughts, both as a wine drinker, but also a business person, entrepreneur, on getting this kind of project started, given that there is already quite a lot of wine out in the market?
Yeah, how's it going, Dan? Thanks for having us on. Gareth's got it pretty much spot on. I mean, the main aim here was to have a bit of fun. So we get to meet up now and again. We get to talk about a project that we both, invested and involved in, and really get to meet some great people within the industry. So yeah, from that perspective, everything is going swimmingly, obviously. From the wine perspective, I thought it would be a little bit easier than it actually is. There's quite a lot of logistics involved in the setup, distribution, putting all the pieces together. But there's been a lot learned in this first project, and we're very happy that it's turned out the way it has. I was quite nervous in the beginning, to be honest with you, because I've never obviously made a wine before. And the first time we tasted it when we were putting in bottle, it was fantastic. I really loved it. Second or third time I tasted it during bottle shock, I nearly, had a mild heart attack because it was terrible. And then it kind of bounced around a little bit, and it's turned out the way it has. So really happy, and it's been a altogether great experience so far.
Tell me about the name here, Collectible and then Oniv in particular. Where do those two come from? What do they reflect? What's the origin of the names?
Collectible Vintage is just really encompasses what we want to do with the project. Put some great wines together, stuff that's really desirable. People want to drink all over the world. Collaborate with sort of wine farms and winemakers who have those kinds of reputation, and use that vessel to really get the name into the markets, the South African sort of growers and winemakers further into the international markets. Oniv is fairly simple and quite silly, actually. It's just vino spelled backwards. Was the first name we came up with, so we just ran with it.
Sounds like the kind of idea that comes about at about 3 a.m. after 9 bottles of wine, but it's distinctive and it sticks, and it's part of what is a success story, because so far you have, of the admittedly modest supply for round 1, sold out completely, Clayton.
Yeah, it's only 1,100 bottles, just over, about 180 cases. So it wasn't very difficult to sell it out, admittedly. A lot of it went to friends, family, suppliers and customers that I already have, as well as 60 cases were sent over to the UK to Flint Wines, which is now our distributor in the UK. So, not a mammoth task, but something we're quite proud of, and hopefully we will build and continue doing into the future.
Which leads me rather nicely to the follow-up question, as you are the businessman in all of that. Yes, there's a bit of fun to it, but you are approaching this as an entrepreneurial exercise. Round 1 is done. What follows from here?
In the background, we're obviously looking at different producers and speaking to different winemakers, getting the ball rolling from there. So we're looking at doing a Pinot. We've managed to secure some grapes from the Michelin-starred area. So that project is already underway. We're also having some conversations around some Syrah, Bordeaux-style whites. So there's lots in the background. We've also been fortunate enough to secure another portion of grapes from Kaapse, Stellenrust, and Rebel. So we will be launching our next vintage, 2023 Oniv, but we'll have double the quantity. So we're hoping to export to the US as a small little leg of ours, and double the quantity into the UK, depending on how it's received. So the project is already growing, and we don't want to become obviously too big, and the people we're getting the grapes from can't obviously give us all the grapes. They're good quality grapes. So we'll be limiting it to around 360 cases per varietal going forward.
All right. Well, that's good news for the growing numbers, people who haven't been able to get hold of the wine in its first vintage. There is some other good news, but I'm going to leave that for a little later on in the show. And before I get an introduction to our next guest, check in quickly with a couple of people watching. The Chenin Blanc Association are watching, all of them. They're all sitting in Ina's living room drinking wine together. Chenin Blanc put South Africa on the map globally this Monday, turning out better and better. Drink Chenin moment at its best. Well, I think it's a really accurate comment, and one that reflects a big part of the South African wine success story at the moment. And then Daryl Balfour from his wine lair somewhere on the fringes of the Kruger National Park. This man owns more wine than Norman Goodfellows have in their warehouses. Good evening, all. Happy Easter. Great chat tonight. If I had to only drink one wine the rest of my life, it has to be Chenin. Well, that's a great South African perspective. Is it shared by people from beyond our shores? Well, let's find out with our next guest. But before I bring him in, I want to jump back very quickly to Gareth, because I suspect, Gareth, you'll do a far better job than I do. We have someone with us who is running the Master Quarter Sommeliers, looks after 67 Pall Mall, has got a quite dazzling wine CV. Introduce us, though, from your perspective, to your mate Ronan and how you roped him into this particular project.
Well, it was by chance, actually, but I mean, just to go back to Ronan, I've known Ronan for as long as I've been sort of studying wine. He was, always a sommelier that I really looked up to, and even when I was working in South Africa, I followed his career and what he was doing. Of course, my goal was always to achieve the Master Sommelier diploma, and my coming to London was really to come and work for Ronan. That was the whole idea I had, and I had a great opportunity to work for him at 67 Pall Mall and learn a hell of a lot and be mentored by him. So it was it was unbelievable to follow the path, to follow that MS path, which he helped me along. I definitely couldn't have done it without the help of Ronan. And I remember the evening that I actually passed my exam, Ronan was the one who gave me the news. So it was it was a pretty proud moment. And the whole project came about. We were back in Cape Town in September of last year, running an intro and certified Quartermaster Sommelier course in Stellenbosch, which I was luckily enough to be invited along to go and teach. So we set aside a few days extra to explore Stellenbosch, and we went down to the Hielmanade, and Clayton, Ronan, and myself spent a bit of time in the vineyards with Ian and a bunch of other producers, and just having a great time. And afterwards, it was kind of on the car journey from the Hielmanade back to Cape Town that Clayton and myself said, "Look, we've had such a great time, and the three of us have really got along well. Should we ask if Ronan wants to join this thing?" Because we felt like his expertise, number one, his knowledge, and his name, will travel very far. So we asked him, and luckily he jumped on board.
Well, if you want an apt metaphor for what has happened here, it's pretty much starting a village football team and asking Cristiano Ronaldo if he'd like to play. In this case, Cristiano Ronaldo said, "Yes, I would." And voila, Ronan is part of the project. Lovely to have you on the show for the first time, Ronan. Warm welcome. Thank you for joining us. It's been quite a journey, this story between you and this young South African kid who wanted to be a sommelier, who now sits as one of London's finest.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Gareth, like he says, I've known him 10 years. Gareth, left South Africa and came to London really to pursue his Master Sommelier diploma. And, I really never had a doubt that he would get there. He was very determined. He worked really hard. And then probably at the worst time that he could have gone to work in a 3 Michelin-star restaurant, working, 24 hours a day, he went there just before he passed his MS. But, he's a hard worker. He's very dedicated. He's a smart guy. So I kind of knew that he'd get there in the end. And of course, to have, South Africa's first and only Master Sommelier and to be involved in a wine project with him, when they asked me, it was a no-brainer.
I can see why, and to have the two of you together makes it extra special. And it's obviously something you're having a lot of fun with. What about the wine itself, though? Is it purely fun, or is there a belief from your perspective, as someone who's had plenty of wine and drinks all of the best stuff from around the world, that South African Chenin Blanc is something that sits up there at the very top of international wine at the moment?
I mean, definitely. I mean, I think as a grape variety, it's a very adaptable grape variety. You look in the Loire Valley and it makes sparkling, makes sweet, makes dry, makes demi-sec. So it's a great grape variety. It has a beautiful acidity that it holds in that South African heat. And it really, you know, when you get the very ripe, the full-bodied stuff, it can hold oak very well. So it can sit up there with the best of Burgundy. I think, you know, it's a long-living wine. Yeah, that grabs that oak and gives it power and gives it weight, and that acidity just gives it longevity and a very, very long lifespan. So yeah, I mean, I love South African Chenin Blanc. I think it's come a long way in the last 20 years or so.
It's a wine that now finds its way into this project of yours at 1,000 bottles or thereabouts, with only 60 cases heading over to Flint and the UK. On its own, it's not going to change the market entirely, but it's part of what we feel from this part of the world is a gradual shifting of the perception of South African wine from entry-level supermarket fare to real premium wine that can compete with the best. Beyond just Chenin Blanc, is the South African wine story moved into that direction from your perspective? Are more people seeing it as a less supermarket stuff and more fine wine that we can drink at top restaurants?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think South Africans are, you know, far too modest about the quality of the wine and about how most of us perceive wine. I mean, I remember during the pandemic, and there was a lot of wine restrictions going on in South Africa, and the English wine trade really kind of stood up and said, no, we're not going to let South African winemakers suffer from this. And the wine trade, from restaurateurs to the wine business, I think that they supported South African wine admirably, and that's just because of the quality of the wine. It's a bit of a cliche now to say, oh, look, South Africa makes great stuff. We've known that for a long time. So yeah, I think South Africans need to hold their heads up high and, be very proud of what they've made.
I want to find out a little bit more about what you do yourself. We'll come back to you in a second, Ronan. Let's finally go over to the winemaker who's sitting somewhere in Stellenbosch. They're doubtless dogs surrounding him, plenty of glasses of wine, and a beaming smile with a flicker of Greek sunshine emerging from it. Ian Naudé is the man behind this particular wine, which is a very, very smart choice by our two sommeliers and their business partner. Ian, lovely to have you back on the show. What was your response when these guys decided they wanted to have a bit of fun with some wine, and would you help them?
Then I think the first thing I said was, I have a Chenin Blanc. Why don't we just put your label on the bottle? Because I've got quite a few to sell. And they were quite persistent. And you know what? Clayton from Joburg, I know he knows a lot of influential people up there. And they kind of forced me, and they said, no, they want their own label. And anything that Gareth would ever call me, I would do, because I think we can't be prouder South African with that guy. I mean, being a master sommelier at a 3-star Michelin in London and flying the flag of South African wines that big, I would do anything to help. And I was really flattered that they phoned me, and they said, they're coming down to Cape Town. How can we start this? And we actually sat around a table, and being a winemaker, telling them, you understand all the legal sides, all the paperwork, all the everything that you need to be done. I still think it should be easier if you just put your label on my bottle, but they did not want to do that. And we actually went out and we started tasting wines, and it was such a really interesting thing to see how they committed to this. And when we started putting the blend almost together of the different proportions of wine, it was really interesting. And it was actually one of those things that you feel insanely proud of being part of, and that you could actually fly the flag for South African from the other side again.
Yeah, you talk about the blend. That's something I'm really interested in, because this is not just let's throw some Shannon in the bottle and send it off and see what we can do with it. There's a lot of time and a lot of thought that's gone into what you've created here. You've got some very, very well-known Shannon out of Kapzacht, Stellenrust as well, which features on the Chenin Blanc top 10 with Standard Bank pretty much every single year. And then you've also headed off to get some from Belle Rebelle as well, and that's 90% of the wine. Tell me about bringing those three Chenins together, and as a winemaker, what challenges, what opportunities those give you, before we mention the final touch of what completes this wine.
Then I always say the beauty of wine in South Africa, and somebody like Ronan can and Gareth can talk hours on that, is we can actually blend terroirs. And I think that was what makes South Africa so interesting. Being a Gareth Ferreira, who's got a market in London and who really understands wines as well, we actually decided, why are we not focusing on only one vineyard? Why don't we take the best of different terroirs, put them together, and the label should actually almost be more proudly South African Chenin Blanc than one terroir or one vineyard. And I think we've tasted to quite a lot of Chenin Blancs, and we got to those last three and we thought, these three complement each other, incredible. And I think that's the exciting part always of winemaking, is a winemaker's job is, and I always say, going back to that Greek guy who wrote on his wall, he said, to make wine is to take a liquid photograph of a specific ecosystem and to put that in a bottle. That's the one part of winemaking. But if you have something like what Gareth and Clayton and Ronan were doing, is they didn't focus just on one, but almost more presenting the quality of South Africa and the layers of different terroirs, putting in one bottle.
Now, that's not all you've got. Already, it's a terrific story, and that bringing together of Shannon from across South Africa is such an exciting way of showcasing different areas of what we do and creating something that is pretty unique, I think, in my knowledge of South African Shannon. But you didn't stop there, because you decided it needed one last little splash of something, and that something was the grape that you've become a bit of a master at. First 5-star platter wine for a Colombard went to Mr. Naudé, so there's 10% Colombard going in here as well.
Then I really think, if somebody's going to ask me how we're going to, I'm also going to slip in some Colombard there. I feel South Africa is going to be known one day, and I hope in 10 years' time, people are going to be talking about Colombards of South Africa as much as they were talking about Chenin Blancs right now. And I just think, when I said to Clinton and Gareth, why don't we just look at these other proportions as well? Because Colombard is so truly South African. We're actually the only country in the world who makes Colombard and put it into a still wine. I mean, Bordeaux does it, but it goes into their brandy, and we do it as well with brandy and stuff. But I thought it would just give it that extra spin, not just Chenin Blanc, but Colombard as well. And the beauty of that is that's the two oldest white cultivars in South Africa as well.
The combination is something quite special. Gareth, when you had this wine for the first time, master sommelier, I mean, you bath in wine, let alone drink this stuff. There's not much you haven't had. What was, when it was bottled and ready to go, you'd been part of the process, but when you had the finished product for the first time, what was that feeling like?
Yeah, it was, I mean, going back to what Ian was talking about when we were doing the blend, and it was a really educational day for me, because we were tasting different parcels of Chenin from different blocks, pretty much all around the Bottleray Hills, but different aging in oak and stainless steel and different terroirs and so on. And it was so much harder to actually taste the wine and to try and realize what it's going to add to the finished product. So, I think we eventually chose a few different blocks and areas and parcels of grapes and wine to taste, to blend. And we sat, I think, on that exact stoop there that Ian's sitting on, and we brought out the test tubes and we started doing different proportions, and we came out with a blend that all three of us were really happy with. So, tasting it for the first time actually in bottle, I think you naturally way more critical of something that you've done yourself. But yeah, I was really happy. And to be honest, you know, like I say, the whole idea of this project is also to promote and to promote the winemakers that we've used, you know. So it's all winemakers that we admire. We love their wines. So it wasn't that difficult to take wine that we already love to drink and just put our own spin on it. And that's the whole idea with Collectible Vintage is, you know, we want to have our own wine, our own brand, our own label, but we really want to talk about the people that have helped us do it, and, you know, in turn, hopefully that gives them something.
It also gives us a wine that, given your role, will be something we like to share with food. I'm not sure if this is going to be on the wine list at Core, but if it were, hypothetically speaking, 3-star Michelin restaurant, Clare Smyth, making some of the finest food pretty much in the world at the moment, let alone in London. What on the Clare Smyth menu are we pairing with this maiden vintage of Oniv?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we're really lucky. You know, this whole project's been about the connections that we have in the industry and the new friends that we've made. And luckily, a good friend of Ronan's and a good friend of mine is also a master sommelier, Gareth Ferreira, who's a director at Flint, straight away said, "Look, you know, if you've got this wine, I want to bring it over to the UK." And I couldn't ask for a better person to be distributing the wine in the UK. And I will definitely ask Claire if I can put a few bottles on Core's list. That's for sure. But yeah, we'll be probably pairing it with, you know, her food is very classic. We have the best of British ingredients, and there's some exceptional seafood that comes down from Cornwall and the south of England. So yeah, so I'd probably go with some turbots and some cod and things like that. But yeah, nothing specific. I think you know, Chenin Blanc is such a diverse grape variety. It's a diverse wine. You can pretty much drink it with so many different options. But yeah, here in the UK, I think just some of the freshest seafood, and you're gonna be onto a winner.
Well, if you need a reminder of the food of Clare Smyth, she cooked at Harry and Meghan's wedding. She worked for a long time as chef patron with Gordon Ramsay, and she's worked all the way up to now working alongside Gareth Ferreira, which is the pinnacle of her career so far. And if you manage to get a table, good luck there. Then you'll be finding possibly just a bottle or two of Oniv on that wine list. Let's jump over to our other rock star sommelier, and in Hong Kong at the moment, traveling the world, spreading the gospel of wine. Tell me a little bit about the Master Court of Sommeliers, which sounds very grand and rather regal. What exactly is it? What does it represent? And what is the purpose of the platform?
Well, we kind of run 4 different levels of sommelier courses, level 1 to up to 4 to the Master Sommelier Diploma. And it's really kind of to give people that are in hospitality and in working as sommeliers, it's really to give them a good career path. It's really to encourage them, you know, to study. I mean, I think that we've probably all met sommeliers in the past who tend to talk a lot, but maybe don't know an awful lot. And I think it's really just trying to give the profession credibility. And we run these courses all over the world now. Like you say, I'm in Hong Kong at the moment. We just had a busy day doing examinations for 60 different students. And it's really just to kind of make the sommelier profession, you know, something credible and something which can be respected. And just to give people, you know, a chance to get into that career and for it to mean something.
Which is a fantastic space, and one we're seeing more of in South Africa. And it's great to see people starting to understand and appreciate just how important the role of sommelier is when we're out and about and drinking wine and being guided through it. And that leads into the other space, which you're also quite influential about. I often get notes from people like Greg Sherwood gleefully and smugly saying that they've managed to sneak into 67 Pall Mall. In fact, I think Cameron van der Berg was there recently drinking some excellent white Burgundy. Tell me about 67 Pall Mall and why it's such a benchmark name in wine in London.
Oh, well, I think that you know, it started probably 9 years ago, and I think it was quite unique because big wine list, not big markups, private members club, and it was really designed for people that love wine and, you know, drink nice wine, not in an elitist way, but just in an appreciative way, and it was designed for them to be able to have a big wine list, professional sommeliers. And just really kind of to enjoy their hobby and, you know, what they love to do, which is, you know, tasting and trying lots of different wines from around the world.
Some of it, I hope, is from South Africa. I haven't been to 67 Pall Mall, but I'm back over in London next month. So I'm hoping to stick my head in and have a look and finally meet you in person, Ronan, and catch up with Gareth as well. From that South African wine perspective, though, we've spoken about the growth and improvement and the perception of South African wine. But what still needs to be done? What for you as a top wine sommelier and authority in the UK, are we still as South African wine brands, as a wine country, not doing enough of, not getting quite right in terms of making the most of the wine we have to offer?
Well, I think probably a bit of diversity in grape varieties. You know, we all love Chenin Blanc, we all love Cabernet Sauvignon, we all love Syrah. You know, but I've had very, you know, great Rieslings from places like Elgin and Elim. You know, great Pinot Noir, obviously from the Hamel-Anada. So yeah, just kind of. Maybe, I mean, I know people like Adi Eben Sadi is planting some Palomino and things like that in the Swartland. So that would be quite interesting just to see a bit of diversity. I think the quality of South African wine has really, you know, opened the door to the world. And I think, yeah, just to see some, you know, some fun, some good, some really kind of interesting grape varieties planted and, you know, making some, you know, diverse wines.
There is a lot of diversity coming, and it sometimes feels like we've almost got too much diversity in South Africa. Look out for things like Assyrtiko coming your way, Ronan, and a few others. And I'm sure some new ones from Ian Naudé, who's always up to something when it comes to making wine. Ian, give us an update on the 2023 vintage for Naudé, and what, I won't ask if, but what have you got up those sleeves of yours for us for this year?
Then I was lucky. It was a tough vintage because of all the rain that came in. All my grapes, I think the heavens knew I'm too old for this. So I got all my grapes in before the big rains. The quality is outstanding. The Colombard from Weskus is this year. You know, it's one of those things where you wish you could brag about it, but the vineyard's been there forever. It's an old vine, and all you need to do is just to find that sweet spot where everything just comes together. And we were really, really lucky this year. Fermentations is done. Everything is in barrels. And yes, there is something new coming the end of the year. I just feel South Africa, we've got so many interesting things that we don't need to be stuck on just everything that we have. So it's going to be a blend again, and on a white side. And yes, maybe Colombard will be in there.
We also know, Ian, you are the unofficial Santorini High Commissioner to Stellenbosch, and the love of Greek wine is strong and celebrated. I presume that partnership is continuing. Will we be seeing even more wine come over from Vasaltis and possibly a couple of other Greek suppliers into South Africa this year?
Definitely. It's one of those things, I think. Then if somebody told me a couple of years ago that I was going to make a Colombard or a Cinsault, or I'm going to start importing Greek wines, I might have emigrated, because I would have thought, I don't know what you're talking about. And all these beautiful things came my way. And Janus, as we're busy with the project, hopefully soon in something in South Africa with Assyrtiko. And you've met his winemaker, also called Janus. I always say the easiest thing is in Greece. If you forgot somebody's name, you just say Janus or Maria. One of them will answer, because pretty much all of them named that. For me, it was just a privilege to have Janus winemaker here, and to show him South Africa. And he left with a big heart, and he said it's been one of his best experiences ever. I think your lunch was one of his highlights as well, and meeting your wife that spoke Greek, all of those things. But yes, I'm bringing in more of these Assyrticos, but this year I'm bringing in more of the range. So the wooded one, and then hopefully the Kalupi, the red one that are a little bit of a part in. And yes, we're flying the Greek flag here, and Yannis is flying the South African flag, big on that side again.
If you were watching the show through August last year, you'll know we did 8 of the live shows from Greece with assorted winemakers, and the quality and caliber of Greek wine has rocketed up over the last 5 years, and the time I've been going with my wife. And the lunch that was mentioned, Yannis joined us at Ernie Else about a month or so ago, and we sampled some of the Vasaltis beyond just the Assyrtiko that everybody knows. And there are so many Greek varietals that are doing really, really interesting things, which leads me to a question I want to ask to Ronan before we wrap up with Clayton and Gareth. Ronan, as I mentioned, I'm going to be over in the UK. One of my plans is to try and drink a little English wine and visit a couple of English vineyards. What initially started out as, it almost seemed like a bit of a laugh, a bit of classic English humour. Let's make some English wine and laugh in the direction of France. There now seems to be some really good stuff coming out, not just bubbles, but some still wine as well. Where is English wine for you, and how bright is the future on your home front?
Oh, very bright. I mean, I think, yeah, we started off, going down the Germanic route of taking all those Germanic varieties like Richtensteiner and Müller-Thurgau and Huxelrebe and things like that, Bacchus, trying to grow grapes in a cool climate. And then we realized, actually, we've got quite a nice bit of chalk. We can plant a Chardonnay, Pinot Noir. We can kind of take the French on. We can take the Champenoise on. So we started doing that. And the French, who previously had been laughing at us, started to sweat a little bit, which is great. So I think, English wines is small. I think it's about 7,000 hectares in size, so very small. But I think that it's kind of jumped in there, quite high on the scale of sparkling wine. And I think the wines that they're making are really great. They're really, really world class. And we've got some great terroir, and we're in that sort of southern part of England in that cool climate, which is perfect for sparkling wine. And, now that the vines have got a bit of age, the Chardonnays and the Pinot Noirs, they're starting to make some, like you say, very smart still wine.
I'm going to be tasting some of that next month, hopefully in the presence of a couple of our guests on the show this evening. But it does look as though there's not just some great wine made by Englishmen, but also by some South Africans. The Jordan operation has made its way over. So I'm going to try and jump in and see what Gary has been up to. Daryl Balfour saying, go visit Hush Heath Estate, Dan. Try their Balfour Brut Rose Bubbly. I wonder if there's a link, Balfour and Balfour. Daryl, I shall put it onto my to-do list. Clayton, we mentioned earlier that the wine is sold out or thereabouts. There is one exception, because with some arm twisting and some fairly ignominious pleading on my behalf, we've managed to secure 2 cases of wine, and you're making those available to people in South Africa.
Yeah, that's the 2 cases came out of our personal collection, to be honest with you. The rest is already sold out, so happy to give you guys the 2 cases, you and Norman Goodfellas, and I think it just helps get the brand out there and gets people to try the wine. And next vintage, hopefully they're able to snap up a case or 2, which will be very nice.
All right. Well, you can look at the Dan Really Likes Wine digital store with Norman Goodfellows. We'll keep an eye on our social media. A little later on this week, we'll have those up and running and ready to go. They will not last very long, so head out there nice and quickly for a taste of something special. Just a reminder, Clayton, the wines we can look forward to, and as much as you're able to tell us stuff. And if we want to keep up to date with Collectible, where do we find you? How do we stay in touch?
You can go through to our website, collectiblevntg.com. All our social handles are on there. Gives a breakdown of, the 3 of us and the wine farms that we've worked with, as well as the winemaker, Ian. And all the upcoming projects and everything will be released on there and through our socials, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc.
All right, and if we can ask you without putting too much of a finger on the exact success, is this something that in 10 years' time, the group of us are on the show again with not just Ian but a couple of other winemakers, and Collectible has become more than just a group of mates hanging out and having a bit of fun with wine, but a really successful wine business? Is that the vision that you see?
Well, we want to grow the business organically, really. So if that's the path that follows, I'm happy to enjoy the ride, kind of thing. Yeah, it hasn't started out like that. We like Gary said, we just did it for a little bit of fun. But I think the industry is so interesting, and the people involved are so interesting. I can't see myself getting out anytime soon, and I like to see things through.
And if it involves drinking 1 or 2 glasses of rather nice wine, then so much the better. Gareth, as we wrap up what's been a really cool hour with all 4 of you, you've had a bit of time to reflect on that Master Sommelier success. It was an enormous amount of work. I've had a look and it's frightening just to try and sum it up, let alone actually engage upon it. Has it all been worthwhile? And have you had a chance now to take it in and fully grasp what you have achieved as being South Africa's first ever Master Sommelier?
Yeah, I still sort of pinch myself every now and then to think, is it actually over? But I say over, it's never over, because I'm on the other side now, and it's a responsibility of mine to as Ronan helped me through the exam, to help other people pass the exam. Hopefully some of those will be more South Africans. I think the Court of Master Sommeliers has now started doing courses in South Africa, the intro and certified course, which has been amazing for me to go and do it last year. And we have another course coming up in September. Yeah, it was a long journey, and not always easy. There was a lot of failures along the way, but I think a lot of people will tell you the Master Sommelier examination or attaining the Master Sommelier diploma, it's a journey, and you learn a lot along the way. And if there wasn't those failures, I definitely wouldn't have learned as much or know as much as I do now. But yeah, there's still a long way to go. I'm really happy to be involved in the court, and Ronan invited me along to teach certain courses, and keeps my knowledge sharp. I must admit, it's almost it's more frightening standing up in front of 30 students that have been studying for an exam, and you have to teach them. I feel like sometimes they know more than you do.
I'm sure that's not the case, but it speaks to the modesty of a man who's done incredibly well for the South African wine industry. Just before we go, Gareth, a word from you to your winemaker, to Ian, who's done so much himself for South African wine, but he's come up with something really unique here, and a really thought-provoking wine that is delightful to drink, and I think suggests a new angle. We can perhaps look at Chenin in particular, and other wines in general in South Africa. What's your final thought on the wine to Ian for what he's produced in partnership with you?
Well, I think when Clayton and myself decided that we were going to do this, for me, it speaks volumes about the respect I have for Ian and his wines, because he was literally the first person I thought of. It was straight away, we need to phone Ian. So, I've probably known Ian and followed his wines since I've become interested in wine, and certainly in the industry. So I've known him for a long time. I've known his wines. So yeah, grateful that he agreed to help us. Yeah, long may our friendship continue. I know every time I go back to South Africa, a few corks get pulled over lunch, and I look forward to doing it again.
That sounds like a pretty good lunch to be part of. Guys, congratulations. The wine is a delight. As with so many wines we have on the show, the challenge is, do I drink it now or do I hang on to it? And made all the more challenging because there is so little of it. And if you'd like to try some, you've got that very limited opportunity. Just 12 bottles available later this week on the Dan Really Likes Wine store with Norman Goodfellows. Watch our social media to find out when they're available. And about a minute thereafter, I suspect they will be all gone. Guys, thank you so much. Ronan, thanks for staying up so late in Hong Kong, and we look forward to seeing you in London. Ian, always lovely to catch up. Clayton, we'll see you back when term time starts again. And Gareth, congratulations. A really cool project. As I say, I'm going to be over in London next month, so hopefully Gareth, Ronan, get to see the both of you and bring some cameras along to catch up again. But until then, well done on a terrific project, and look forward to many, many more collectible vintages to come.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Dan.
Thank you.
There we
Yes.
go. The team behind Collectible, the managing director, big boss, entrepreneur supreme, Clayton Foster, together with winemaker Ian Naudé, the man behind the Quartermaster Sommeliers and 67 Pall Mall, Ronan Sayburn, out of Hong Kong at the moment, but heading back to London soon, and Gareth Ferreira, and we can't stress this enough, South Africa's very first master sommelier. It is an achievement that takes a huge amount of work, dedication, and commitment, and Gareth has pulled it off, and it's a major, major boon for South African wine, having somebody like that in London as a South African sommelier. And he is at Clare Smyth's Core, 3 Michelin stars. It is a restaurant that you won't get into easily, but it is hugely worth the effort to try and do so. Splendid, splendid restaurant. The food is almost as good as the wine service. That wraps us up for today. On Thursday, join us on the show where we have the Wine Magazine Minority Report. Christian Eads will be with us, but who will be joining him? Who cracked top scores in the red and white minority reports, those for the grapes that sit outside the mainstream? Well, you'll find out on Thursday's show. Also during the week, look out for this week's magazine show. That'll be online tomorrow. And don't forget those special offers on wine at the Grill House and our Boschendal competition. The chance to win 2 nights for 2 people down at Boschendal. And that's for anybody who buys a bottle of Bubbles or a bottle of the Nicholas at Norman Goodfellows or the Dan Really Likes Wine store through the course of April. I'm off to enjoy my final evening in the Free State. Back to Johannesburg tomorrow. We'll see you in the Dan Really Likes Wine cellar on Thursday evening. Until then, goodbye. This is Boschendal Wine Estate, and this is going to be your home if you win one of the coolest prizes in wine this year. For the month of April, Dan Really Likes Wine and Norman Goodfellows have teamed up with Boschendal for the wine experience of a lifetime. Simply buy any bottle of the Nicholas Red Blend or Bubbles from Boschendal, and you'll go into the draw to win this as a prize. 2 nights accommodation plus flights down to the Cape, transfers to the estate, lunch or dinner at both the deli and the Verf restaurant, a picnic in the splendid Boschendal grounds, and if you're feeling adventurous, the chance to go horse riding, and on top of that, a wine tasting with some of the great vintages of South African wine. To enter any bottle of Nicholas or any bottle of Bubbles, buy them at Norman Goodfellows stores, online, or the Dan Really Likes Wine pop-up store, and that fabulous Boschendal prize could be all yours.